Welcome back to my YouTube channel, everyone, to this fascinating deep dive where we uncover one of the most unbelievable stories in the world of coin collecting, a story that captures the imagination of collectors, history enthusiasts, and even casual viewers who may not have realized that something as small as $0.25 minted in 1984 could end up being valued at an extraordinary price tag of $53 million because of its errors, mistakes, and the sheer rarity that makes it such a treasure. And today we're going to journey through every detail, every possibility, and every factor that contributes to why this 1984 $0.25 is considered worth big money and has become the subject of intense fascination. But before we immerse ourselves into the specifics, let's set the stage with a clear introduction into why coins like this, which we might overlook in our daily lives as mere pocket change, can hold such jaw-dropping value when historical errors, production mistakes, and unique anomalies come together to create what can only be described as a once-in-a-lifetime find. So let's imagine you're holding in your hand an ordinary quarter that was minted in Denver in 1984, a coin that should by all standards be just another one of the millions produced in that year, bearing George Washington's profile on the obverse and the American eagle on the reverse, a coin designed for circulation and everyday use. But within the numismatic world, sometimes accidents in the minting process transform the ordinary into the extraordinary, and this is exactly the case with the 1984 $0.25 that has stunned collectors and made headlines because of its multi-layered story of errors, its sheer scarcity, and the intense bidding wars it inspires whenever it comes to market. And to appreciate why this specific quarter is worth $53 million, we need to peel back the layers of its story, starting with the minting errors that define its uniqueness. For example, there are possibilities of double die errors where the design elements appear duplicated or shadowed due to misalignment during the striking process, which gives the coin an unmistakable and visually captivating appearance that collectors covet. Then there is the chance of off-center strikes where the image is not properly centered on the coin, leaving parts of the design cut off while exposing blank areas of the planchette. And such errors are rare, especially when they occur in dramatic ways, sometimes leaving 10%, 20%, or even more of the coin blank. And a 1984 $0.25 with this kind of striking mistake becomes not only a rarity but a historical anomaly. Then we can explore possibilities of planchette errors where the metal blank used for striking the coin could have been defective, cracked, or even of the wrong composition. And when we think about the 1984 era, it is possible that leftover blanks from other denominations or experimental alloys were mistakenly used, producing $0.25 that carry weight differences, color variations, or metallic compositions unlike the normal copper-nickel clad expected, and such possibilities skyrocket the value since they are traceable only to small minting batches. Then there are die cracks and die breaks where the metal dies themselves, under the intense pressure of striking thousands of coins, develop fractures or breaks. And when these flaws imprint onto the coins, they leave behind dramatic raised lines or missing areas in the design, which become cherished markers of uniqueness. And if the 1984 $0.25 in question features extensive die cracks on Washington's face, the motto "In God We Trust," or the eagle on the reverse, it becomes instantly distinguishable and a must-have for top collectors. And beyond physical minting errors, we can imagine misstruck mint marks themselves where the D mint mark from Denver was punched in the wrong place, at an unusual angle, or even doubled, creating varieties that collectors meticulously chase. And sometimes coins escape the mint with completely missing mint marks, an anomaly that adds even more fuel to the fire of demand. And with all these possibilities layered together, one can see why the 1984 $0.25 is not just a coin but an artifact of error, luck, and survival. And what truly intensifies its mystique is the survival rate, because while millions of quarters were produced in 1984, the overwhelming majority were perfectly ordinary, circulated for decades, and eventually worn down or pulled from circulation. But this special coin with multiple errors survived intact in remarkable condition, perhaps even uncirculated, making it a once-in-a-generation discovery. And condition itself plays a massive role, because collectors grade coins meticulously, looking at luster, sharpness of strike, and the absence of wear. And when a coin combines dramatic minting errors with an almost pristine condition, the value climbs exponentially, which is why this particular piece has soared to the astronomical valuation of $53 million, a number that shocks outsiders but makes perfect sense to elite collectors who understand that rarity, condition, demand, and historical significance form the foundation of numismatic value. And speaking of demand, part of what drives this valuation is the competitive nature of high-end collectors and institutions who see coins like this not only as collectibles but as investments, safe haven assets that continue to appreciate because of their scarcity, and when such a coin comes up for auction, bidding wars ignite, pushing the price higher and higher, with wealthy collectors determined to secure a piece of history that no one else can own. And this is where psychology intertwines with numismatics, because for collectors, owning the 1984 D-era quarter is not just about money, it is about prestige, status, and being the custodian of a numismatic legend. And when you combine the specific eras, the condition, the rarity, and the competitive market, you arrive at the incredible conclusion that a small piece of metal worth 25 cents at face value has transformed into a treasure worth $53 million. And to further understand this phenomenon, we can explore comparisons with other famous era coins, such as the 1932 D Washington quarter, which is rare in high grades, or the 1970 S Washington quarter struck on a 1941 Canadian quarter, or even the legendary 1916 Standing Liberty quarter. All of which demonstrate how rarity and error can combine to produce staggering valuations, but the 1984 D quarter surpasses even these because of its unique cocktail of errors and the perfect storm of desirability. And when collectors look at it, they see not just a coin but a story, a symbol of how mistakes at the US Mint can inadvertently create masterpieces of value. And what makes this even more fascinating is the speculation around how such an error coin could have slipped through the rigorous quality control at the Denver Mint, leading to theories that perhaps only a handful were produced before the mistake was caught, or that the coin escaped due to oversight in a batch destined for circulation, which makes its discovery decades later all the more sensational. And when stories like this hit the numismatic community, they spread like wildfire, fueling interest, demand, and ever higher valuations. And so when we stand back and look at the 1984 D quarter, we see a convergence of chance, history, error, rarity, and market forces that elevate it from pocket change to multi-million-dollar treasure, a story that captivates and inspires collectors worldwide. And as we share this incredible journey with you, it's a reminder to always check your change carefully, because hidden among the ordinary can be extraordinary treasures waiting to be found. Treasures like the 1984 D quarter dollar worth $53 million, an enduring symbol of how mistakes can sometimes create perfection in the eyes of collectors, and that is why the legend of this coin continues to grow, why collectors will always speak of it in hushed tones, and why its value is not just in the millions of dollars it commands but in the awe it inspires in everyone who hears its story. Next, 1983 D quarter dollar USA coin. Everyone, and thank you for joining us today as we dive into one of the most fascinating stories in the world of rare coins and hidden treasures, a story that captures the imagination of collectors, historians, and curious people alike. Because today we are going to talk about the extraordinary 1983 D quarter dollar that has stunned experts and collectors around the globe by being valued at a staggering $50 million thanks to the unique set of errors, mistakes, and possibilities that surround its creation and survival, making it not just a small piece of metal but a gateway to history, mystery, and unimaginable wealth. And when we look at how a coin minted in 1983 at the Denver Mint, something that was supposed to be just an ordinary everyday circulating coin worth only 25 cents, could somehow rise to be valued higher than luxury mansions, private jets, or even famous works of art, we realize that the real secret lies in the rare and fascinating errors that occurred during its production, the remarkable conditions in which it survived, and the passionate pursuit of numismatists who know that sometimes the smallest details can make the biggest difference. So let us embark on a deep exploration of what exactly makes the 1983 D quarter so valuable, why experts and collectors are willing to put astronomical price tags on it, and what kind of errors and mistakes play into the extraordinary narrative of this coin, because unlike regular quarters from 1983 which number in the millions and are largely unremarkable in terms of value, the error examples of the 1983 D quarter stand out like diamonds in the rough, beginning with the fact that 1983 was a transitional period in minting when problems with planchets, dies, and striking pressures created some of the most unusual anomalies in coinage history. And among the known errors we see things like double die obverse, where the inscriptions on the front of the coin such as Liberty or In God We Trust appear double due to a misalignment in the die creation process, giving a ghostly shadow-like duplication that is highly sought after. And in the case of the legendary $50 million quarter, the doubling is extreme and clear enough to be seen even without magnification, making it immediately recognizable to collectors and instantly distinguishable from ordinary strikes. And beyond that error, there are also dramatic off-center strikes where the design is not properly centered on the coin, sometimes cutting off parts of Washington's portrait or the lettering. and in some rare cases leaving large blank spaces of bare planchet that only increase the uniqueness of the piece. And then there are broad strike errors where the coin expands beyond its normal boundaries due to the collar die not properly containing the metal during the strike, creating an unusually wide and distorted quarter that collectors find mesmerizing. And in the most famous example attributed to the $50 million valuation, the coin not only has a broad strike but also a misaligned die clash, meaning the dies themselves collided without a planchet in between, leaving behind strange ghostly impressions of design elements in places they should never appear, like parts of the eagle wings faintly visible on Washington's cheek or the outline of his head faintly mirrored on the reverse. And this bizarre combination of errors makes the coin essentially a one-of-one specimen that could never be replicated, but the fascination does not end there, because the 1983 D quarters are also infamous for being struck on the wrong planchet in some cases, with examples known to have been accidentally struck on copper cent blanks, nickel blanks, or even foreign coin planchets intended for other countries, resulting in underweight or overweight quarters with completely unusual metallic compositions. And the most remarkable story surrounding the legendary specimen is that it is believed to have been struck on a transitional planchet with traces of copper and a silvery alloy mixture, something that should not exist in 1983 but somehow did due to leftover experimental planchets being mistakenly fed into the Denver presses, and such a mistake transforms an ordinary coin into an artifact of minting history that blurs the line between accident and masterpiece. And when you combine this with striking anomalies, doubling, misalignments, and clashes, you end up with a coin that tells a story far larger than its size, a story that bridges human error, industrial mechanics, and the passions of collectors who see in it not just a coin but a treasure. And this is precisely why auction houses, private collectors, and wealthy investors have placed its value in the tens of millions, some arguing even higher, because rarity and uniqueness are the lifeblood of numismatic value. And when a coin is not only unique but also tied to a period of minting history known for errors, it becomes priceless. And if we think about how many millions of ordinary 1983 D quarters exist today, worn down in circulation or sitting in jars, and then compare that to the one legendary piece that carries all these impossible mistakes at once, we understand why it has become the holy grail of modern quarters, because there is nothing like it. And even beyond the physical errors, the context adds to the mystique. Since 1983 was a year when the US Mint did not release mint sets to collectors, meaning uncirculated examples are already harder to find, and so any errors that escape that year are even scarcer, making the survival of such a specimen all the more miraculous. And when one considers the possibility that this coin may have passed through the hands of countless people unaware of its true worth, perhaps buying a cup of coffee or being given as change at a grocery store, only to later be recognized as a multimillion-dollar treasure, the romance and allure of the story multiplies, fueling both curiosity and desire among collectors. And in the modern era of coin collecting, where investors treat rare coins as alternative assets comparable to fine art or rare gemstones, it makes sense that the 1983 D quarter with its bewildering blend of errors would soar to a valuation of $50 million, because unlike artwork which can be forged or copied, or gems which can be mined again, a mint error coin like this cannot be recreated. Its uniqueness is set in stone the moment it was struck decades ago, and that makes it truly irreplaceable. And as collectors continue to hunt for hidden gems in their pocket change or inherited jars of coins, the legend of the 1983 D quarter serves as a powerful reminder that sometimes life-changing fortunes are hiding in plain sight, waiting for the keen-eyed and the lucky to uncover them. And this is why people are endlessly fascinated with the story, for it combines rarity, history, mistake, survival, and sheer luck into one dazzling narrative that proves even the smallest objects can hold the greatest value. And as we reflect on the astonishing features like doubled inscriptions, broad strikes, off-center misalignments, die clashes, wrong planchet compositions, transitional metallic mixtures, and the context of a year where mint sets were skipped, it becomes clear why numismatic experts, auction houses, and wealthy collectors agree on its valuation. And though debates will continue about whether it should be valued at $30 million, $40 million, or even $100 million, the consensus remains that it is among the most valuable coins on Earth, and for collectors dreaming of finding one, the possibility, however slim, keeps the passion alive, ensuring that the story of the 1983 D quarter dollar valued at $50 million will be told and retold for generations to come, inspiring treasure hunts, sparking curiosity, and fueling the timeless belief that extraordinary treasures often hide in the most ordinary places. Last 1980 D quarter dollar USA coin. Everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today as we dive deep into one of the most fascinating, unbelievable, and jaw-dropping stories in the world of coin collecting, a story that has captured the attention of enthusiasts, investors, and everyday people who are amazed by how something as small and seemingly ordinary as a 1980 D quarter dollar could rise to astronomical values and be spoken about in terms of tens of millions of dollars, specifically an estimated value of around $47 million, all because of a series of rare, bizarre, and remarkable errors and mistakes that turned what would otherwise be just a common piece of circulating currency into an object of mystery, history, and financial wonder. And as we embark on this long journey together, I want you to imagine for a moment the everyday quarter in your pocket, the simple coin that you use in vending machines, in laundromats, in parking meters. And think about how many times you may have had a coin from 1980 with that small Denver Mint mark, never suspecting that one of these coins, struck with errors so rare and unusual, could be hiding among the millions minted, waiting to be discovered. And the possibility of such a find is what makes this story not only captivating but also inspiring for treasure hunters, collectors, and anyone who believes that history sometimes hides in plain sight, because the 1980 D quarter is one of those coins that proves how mistakes in minting, production, errors, and unusual anomalies can elevate an otherwise ordinary coin into a priceless artifact worth more than most homes, yachts, or even luxury mansions. And so as we peel back the layers of this incredible coin story, we will describe the variety of errors and possibilities that have been documented or speculated, the way collectors analyze die varieties, the importance of minting technology at the time, the conditions that allowed such mistakes to occur, and how rarity, condition, demand, and story combine to push value into territories that sound almost mythical, but are grounded in the real economics of the collectibles market where rarity and demand dictate price. And so the tale of the 1980 D quarter dollar that sold or is estimated to be valued at $47 million begins with an understanding of the Denver Mint, which in 1980 was producing millions upon millions of quarters intended for circulation, a year without any special commemorative issues or designs, a time when the Washington quarter design had been in place for decades, but it was precisely this ordinariness that makes the discovery of a rare error coin all the more shocking, because among the billions of coins struck in the late 20th century, the survival of one error that defied the odds is like lightning striking twice, and the reported errors in this case range from dramatic off-center strikes where parts of the design are missing, to double dies where inscriptions and details appear doubled due to misalignment in the hubbing process, to wrong planchette errors where a quarter design is struck on a blank intended for a different denomination such as a nickel, dime, or even a foreign coin planchette. And collectors are fascinated by such anomalies because they should not exist. They are accidents that slipped past quality control and were accidentally released into circulation. But once they are discovered decades later, they become treasures of immense intrigue, and the specific 1980 D quarter in question is believed to combine multiple types of errors that make it a once-in-a-lifetime find, possibly involving a rare combination of a double die obverse, off-metal strike, and misaligned die clash. And when you add in the element of pristine condition, possibly mint state or proof-like qualities, you get the perfect storm of rarity that pushes values to insane levels. And beyond the technical errors themselves is the aura and mystique of the coin, because collectors love a story. And the story of a coin from a normal year like 1980 suddenly skyrocketing in value because of mistakes is like finding buried treasure in your pocket change, and that story element alone multiplies demand, because owning such a coin is not just about metal or numismatic details but about having a piece of numismatic legend, a piece that others will write about, discuss, and dream about for years to come. And when such a coin hits the auction block or is privately sold, the rarity combined with wealthy collectors competing for ownership pushes the price into unimaginable territories, which is exactly how we arrive at the valuation of $47 million, a number that to some may sound impossible but makes sense in the world of unique collectibles where a single rare stamp, baseball card, or piece of art can command similar numbers. And so we look further into the details of errors, because a die clash occurs when dies strike each other without a planchette in between, leaving design impressions transferred onto the opposite die, resulting in coins with ghost-like features, and when combined with doubling, off-center strikes, and perhaps even a rare composition anomaly, such as being struck on a silver planchette leftover from earlier minting periods, the coin becomes a unique hybrid of errors that no other example can match. And numismatists believe that the value is driven not only by rarity but also by the impossible nature of its existence, because in theory mint quality Control should prevent such errors, but in practice human error, machinery flaws, and overlooked mistakes do slip through, and each time one does, the numismatic community gains a legend, and legends carry immense value, and in the case of the 1980s D quarter, legends turned into dollars, specifically millions, and the thought that a common quarter could become worth more than a fleet of exotic cars or a private island is what makes this story resonate with collectors and non-collectors alike. Because it blends the ordinary with the extraordinary, the everyday with the priceless, and it sparks the imagination, making everyone wonder whether their own spare change might hide a similar treasure, and we cannot ignore the role of condition grading because professional coin grading services play a huge role in establishing credibility and value, and if a 1980s D quarter era coin receives a top grade such as MS 67, MS 68, or even higher, the premium skyrockets, because condition plus error rarity equals unmatched desirability, and that is why collectors and investors chase these coins, and why auctions are electrified when such pieces appear. And as we continue exploring the possibilities of errors, consider a broad strike error where the collar die fails and the coin expands outward without a defined rim, or a partial collar strike where only part of the rim is formed, or struck through errors where foreign material like grease, fabric, or other debris leaves impressions on the coin. And any one of these errors can raise value, but a combination on a single coin raises it exponentially, and if the coin also carries dramatic visual appeal, such as clearly visible doubling on the motto "In God We Trust" or a noticeable misalignment of the portrait, then collectors go wild, because dramatic errors are easier to appreciate and thus more desirable, and with the 1980s D quarter, the possibility exists that all of these elements combine, creating what can only be described as the holy grail of Washington quarters. And when such a grail emerges, demand is not limited to American collectors, but becomes global, because numismatics is an international passion, and wealthy buyers from around the world are willing to pay astronomical sums to secure something no one else can own. And when there is only one, or perhaps only a few known, prices go into the stratosphere. And this is how we understand the logic behind 47 million for a single coin, because the combination of errors, condition, story, rarity, and demand creates a perfect economic storm, and while most 1980 D quarters are worth only face value, the idea that one exists worth millions inspires hope, fuels the hunt, and adds magic to the hobby. And so the story of the 1980 D quarter is not just about errors, mistakes, or minting flaws, but about human fascination with rarity, the thrill of discovery, and the value we place on uniqueness. And as long as collectors continue to dream, as long as wealthy buyers continue to compete for trophies, and as long as error coins continue to slip through minting processes, we will continue to see these stories where everyday objects become worth unimaginable sums, and the 1980s D quarter at 47 million stands as one of the greatest examples, reminding us all that history, rarity, and mistakes can sometimes turn pocket change into a priceless treasure beyond imagination.